Lord knows next thing you know, one of them be having a kid.
You're officially on the record.
You got me.
I know.
Yeah.
All righty. Let's get started. It's 6 o'clock on the dot. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming. Everybody have a good holiday? Well, good, because it's time to get back to work. We all figured that out in this past week. We've been resting ourselves, but we got a lot of good things to talk about, and Debbie will not be with us. She's on a cruise in Cuba, and I thought Les would be here. Did you hear from him?
I thought he was going to be here.
I thought he was going to be. He may just be running late.
Okay. But we have a quorum, so we'll get started. First, one thing I want to note before we start, there's going to be a gentleman come in sometime after 6:30, Michael?
6 or 6:30.
Something like that. Fella's name is?
Doug Baldessari from Umball.
And he is a financial advisor that we have become aware of, and Mike was able to get him to come at the last minute and kind of as a good person to educate us a little bit about what we're embarking on. But we're going to probably interrupt whatever we're doing, try to finish it up, and let him get in and get out. So if it seems a little disjointed, I apologize in advance, but I want to respect his time. Hi, Les. First order of business is the approval of the December 12th board meeting minutes. Did anyone have any additions or deletions or corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the December 12th meeting minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
Oh, thank you. Michael was not here. Okay. Thanks, Michael. Next up is the treasurer's report.
$109,335.87 in income. That's because we got our Brown County and Monroe County taxes. And $25,478 in expenses. So pretty good month.
Yeah, absolutely.
I went over the checks, and I didn't see anything that caught my eye. $12,000 in checks written for the month. So I would entertain a motion to approve the December allowances. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
All right. So you want to make that?
The motion has been approved. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side. Motion carries. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. All right, manager's report. Adam?
Should be pretty quick. As far as election update, I was uncontested with Mike Blackwell running in for District 7. So we'll not be holding an election in February, which I'm always a fan of because it's a lot less work for the
Takes a lot less time, a lot less work, right? Thanks for making sense.
Thank you to my group.
Didn't look like.
Constituent.
Yes.
Well, I didn't want to call it. I just call them a group.
Buying whiskey to.
He got them all assigned. Didn't look like you had that much support, Mike. I don't know. See how it goes. Kidding.
Next up, we have our extension agreement for LLCD mowing. This is the last year of eligible one-year extensions for a contract that was initially entered in February 2016. It's for the season mowing for the park, dam, all of our utilized areas for a cost of $10,560. Next year we will have to bid that out again. So I would like to recommend a motion that we go ahead and approve the mowing extension agreement with Nate Anderson Excavating.
I'll make that motion, Adam.
Second.
There's no rate increase.
Correct. It's been the same price since 2016.
And you've been happy? You have? I should ask you.
Yeah, it's been really good. And actually, when we bid that out in 16, the next one that came in was right around 15,000. So it was
Okay.
pretty good deal.
So we have a motion from me to extend that agreement or continue that agreement for one more year. Did we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Any other discussion? If not, it's been moved and seconded to approve the mowing extension agreement with Ann Anderson Lawn Care. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next, we have our 2019 dam inspection proposal. The dam inspections occur every 2 years. Every other dam inspection, so every 4 years, we do a full inspection, including the sluice gates and divers. So I would like to recommend this contract with DLZ for the biennial inspection. DLZ's been doing our processing for as long as I can remember. They do a really good job and they work really well with DNR. The cost on here is estimated at $5,280 with some additional, potentially mileage, paperwork, some pretty small add-ons to that. But the cost is right in line with what it has been in the past. So if there's no questions for that, I would like to...
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
Just this additional service thing, I mean, it looks like it's kind of open.
I thought that too.
What is that? You know, it says it's not part of the basic services presented in scope of service. It seems kind of, it's paragraph 1 under additional services on the second page of their proposal.
It looked like that it required mutual consent in order to move forward, so it would have to have signatures in order for it to proceed with the additional services other than the reimbursables. That's how I read it.
Yeah. And the last time it came in under $6,000 with the additional services.
Okay, so
and that
in
was
other words, they can't just do whatever.
no, yeah, and they actually had to call up last time because they wanted to bring down like a second engineer during it.
I remember that now. Okay.
Yes, if we ask.
Okay.
As long as it isn't like a blank
Okay.
check. Yep.
Yeah, I did. That was sort of my concern less originally, but then I kept, looked a little bit and reread it, and it's like, okay, it requires a mutual consent. They don't have the
Before they
blank
do
check.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you said this is sort of the minimal inspection?
Yes, yeah. So last time we had it inspected, we had the divers out and actually dived through the entire sluice gate and stilling basin. This one is just the dam inspection, and then 2 years from now, when we come back to it, there'll be another one with the sluice gate divers.
Because it looks like they do some surveying and stuff. They've got stuff in here for survey crew, and so they must like make sure it's not moving or something.
Yeah, no, they actually come down and we'll hike around with them, give them access. Because we really have to walk the entire dam to make sure there's no seepage spots, animal burrows, vegetation that needs removed. So it's kind of an all-day affair when they break down their engineers.
Well, yeah, I'm all for it because if the dam goes away, so will our property value.
We did just get our
Thanks, Mike.
IDEM kind of inspection from. They sent us a reminder for this, and then actually the rating, and we were, I believe there's only 15 out of 80 high hazard dams in the state that were rated satisfactory, which is the highest rating, and we were one of those. So that's good. There are a couple recommendations. We do need to move some woody debris and some minor things, but we'll be working on that as the year goes by.
So that'll be this year. You'll have them come out.
Yeah, we have actually our tentative schedule right now. I believe it's February 17th to come out. We have to have the inspection done before March 15th, and then submitted to IDEM within 40 days after that.
I'll make the motion that we hire DLZ to do our dam inspection.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we hire DLZ. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Next up, we're looking at online payment processing, and this is actually the same company that we have our current credit card processing through, which is who our bank, People's State Bank, is a company that they work with frequently and recommend. So we don't have to take any action on this now if we don't want to. I kind of wanted to open it up for discussion. It's really the fees are essentially what we're paying for our credit card now. Then it's an additional $20 per month fee. And actually what that would allow us to do, instead of us kind of using PayPal or one of these companies, it's our actual credit card company, and it allows us to use their, what I'm going to call digital shopping cart area. So essentially if we wanted to, since we have the online registration now, we could put in a pay button at the bottom, and which would transfer over to their site. We can set the fees, we can set the usage. It actually tracks it. It has software so we can look what type of purchase has been made, if orders have been fulfilled. One of the things that I would like to do is potentially transition to where we can accept those, and then maybe even mail out passes for an additional fee, maybe like a $5 processing fee. If people want to pay that, we could actually mail out annual passes. Once we do approve this, it will probably take us a little bit of time to set up. We'll have to manipulate the website, make sure we get everything set up with theirs. Passes go on sale the beginning of March. So the one-time setup fee of $35, and then the monthly fee of $20 for the online processing. And we wouldn't be holding any data ourselves, no storage of information ourselves, so we wouldn't have any increased liability as far as data storage and breach, and that would all be on them. So if we were interested, and one of the questions that came up, me and Mary Jane were talking, was about the marina, if we could potentially do that. And one of the things I was thinking, if they did pay online, you know, with their receipt, they could, if you didn't mind, they could bring it to you and just pick up a pass, and then when we close you out, we could.
I think that might be tricky. I'd like to know what State Board of Accounts would still insist that I do. I mean, what I'm envisioning is that I will not sell passes anymore, which I'm great with. No problem with that. But as far as them picking them up, it seems like they would have to do it through you, because State Board of Accounts is really picky about what I have to do, the amount of paperwork I have to do versus what you do.
Yeah.
So I would think that I would have to have them sign something that says they picked it up. I'd have to have a receipt of some sort. I'm in favor of going this route, but I'm in favor of then everything going through your office.
Are you envisioning this year then stopping to sell? I know we talked about that last year.
I don't think we can do that, but if they buy them online, they have to pick them up through you.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that as well.
If they just want to purchase them from me, then we can still do it as a transition year. Because I see that could be, you know, people aren't going to know about it. They're not going to do it immediately.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that big of a deal for them to come over to you and pick them up if they order them online, because they can come by boat. So
exactly, and I kind of envisioned it going through us as well. That's just one of the questions that we had, is how that would work.
I'm good with doing a transition year and then letting you have it.
But then I think you absolutely need that mail-in option.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I think you would have to have
Or
that.
mail it to you option.
Yeah.
And that's something I think $5 is kind of minimal. I think it's a good deal if people want to pay.
That is a good deal.
Yeah.
For ones they're spending on the permits anyway.
Well, and I think
Exactly.
old habits die hard. People that on the far northwestern shore aren't going to necessarily, in the middle, probably more than anything, don't want to come all the way over. So I think
No.
that would help.
And then we have to have a way of monitoring, you know, who's purchased them and who's launching and who's, you know.
Yeah, no, it's
get
much
into
easier
that.
just to go through us for all of that.
Yeah.
So we could probably get this set up prior to passes going online this year if we are in favor and interested in doing that.
Does anything about our ability to track who's purchasing get compromised in this? Do we know?
No, it does
Okay.
not. We'd still be using our same database that we use to track purchasing. And actually, this may be another layer of tracking, because we would have a secondary receipt.
They would have the customer name, but not their financial information, just the fact of the amount that they paid.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be storing any
I kinda
financial
like this.
information. And then as we get these, we print off weekly. It'd be kind of like our credit card where we batch it at the end of the week. That goes in with our proceeds that we account for. And then any passes that we allocate, we would use our system to put that data in as far as pass numbers.
So would it only be for the annual pass, or could you do it for your boat permit?
Well, I think it'd be for the annual passes and for annual park passes. I'm a little weary of getting into the dailies on there, which essentially have to come through the park anyways if you're doing it daily.
Yeah.
So
So what about your boat, your annual boat permit for residents?
That's what I'm talking about, yeah. The
I thought you were
boat
talking
pass.
about the pass to get into the park.
No, well, we can put
Boats
annual
different.
park passes, but no, it'd be the annual boat passes for both resident and non-resident.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Could dogs be on there?
But
Could dogs, dog be on
we're looking into that. The tricky part on that is contracts for our subleases have to be signed by Vic Kelson as well, and I haven't figured out a way yet to do a digital signature, since it has to be signed off by me, the people, and then the city of Bloomington. We're working on that though, and
You might, we do a lot of things with, I just got from the sign off on today.
I mean, there's quite a bit of go. Like, it's the taxes, you know. There's a digital signature.
We use FormStack for a lot of our things. That's a pretty slick system, and it directs it to whoever has to prove
Really?
it. So they're not physically, obviously, signing it, but there's a record that they log in and they sign off on it. And it can go to-
FormStack?
Yeah.
So that'd be something I would have to talk with CBU about, to make sure they were
I'm
on
just
board.
interested in putting dogs on the credit card. If you're using a credit card, you pay dog fee.
Yeah, because currently we don't allow doc fees with credit cards, just to be able to check.
So do Do you?
If we're fine with that, I mean, it's a $20 a month, which I think is a pretty minimal fee to pay to offer the service, and we can expand what we're offering through these sales as we move forward.
Did I miss a question?
Yeah, if you don't mind taking one from the audience. So explain to me how this would work, for instance. So I would take my boat over to the marina, and I would pay you money to launch, obviously, but I wouldn't have the sticker on because it's still over there, and I haven't gone over to pick it up yet. So will you let me launch?
Well, that's what I'm saying, if
You can just buy your stickers at the marina.
well, you can buy, if you, well, yeah, you can.
This year, but
This year,
in
but after
future,
that,
yeah,
okay,
right.
Yeah.
after that, I guess it would be a matter of,
That's where the mail part comes in, right?
yeah, you know, because I can't really enforce you buying a sticker.
Oh, you can't, okay.
I can't, I mean, I don't have the right to do that.
Letting me get
But it would be nice if they're going through the program that you're using now for people to go in and sign up, and they're buying there, then it should have a paid, if it has a paid feature on there, then I can look it up and say, oh, Malcolm, you've already bought your permit. I mean, I can encourage that, and then if someone comes in and says, well, I want to launch, I'm going to buy it over there or whatever, or I've already bought it. I just need, it'd be nice to have some proof that they did that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a paid one on there, and we'll be updating that form anyways as we move
I
forward.
still
so.
can't force you to buy it, but I can certainly call Adam and say, okay, this guy just launched and he didn't buy his permits.
You give
Go
a
after
free,
him.
And he's
free
in a-
launch when you sell a permit?
Do we what?
Do you give a free launch? Okay, because we do. We give a
Yeah.
free launch. You do not.
Well, because I'm not.
Right,
it's-
right. No, that's why I asked.
Yeah, you should. You'd be a ditty.
That makes no sense.
That makes sense.
Well, I mean, already you're giving up the money.
Well, you
I
know,
expect that.
I'm good with giving up the, it seems like it needs to be under one umbrella.
I think it does, so it'd be
just,
much
you know,
easier. Yeah.
It's your program, and I'm fine with it.
I guess
So you can pay for the launch, irregardless whether you have a sticker or not.
Right.
It's a good question.
How many passes would you say you sell on average, right?
Well, my overall sales are about a little under 40,000.
Yeah.
Number of passes, if I had my other computer, I could tell you.
I'm trying to think. Maybe 300, 400.
Probably in,
Yeah, probably 300 or 400.
I would guess 300 or 400.
You pay her in December, don't you? Or do you pay her
Well, no, it's
monthly?
It's
It's paid monthly.
By checkout, by
Yeah,
close out.
yeah, we check out
So,
probably once
I'm
every
just
month or
wondering
two.
how much of a change this will, for how many people this will be a change.
Well, I think, but having the mail-in item, I mean, then you don't have to go to the marina to do it.
Right.
Just click
Right.
a button and it shows up at your door.
Yeah. There might be people that say, I live on the North Shore, I want to buy permits to the marina because I'm going to launch there anyway.
No.
You know, there might be those people. But if they don't have an option, then they launch with me and buy from you. So,
Yeah.
And if the seller doesn't really want to
Do you recall if
then-
she's account number 6120?
I don't know right off the top of my
The other
head.
thing-
$1,949?
yeah, that was my
Commission.
commission.
So that's a
sales are
6%
little-
commission.
Yeah, but my sales are a little under 40,000. And the other thing, Mary Jane, is that when someone comes in and buys, they're often buying 3 or 4 permits. It's
Okay.
not so it's
Yeah,
one
they're
customer
not-
that's buying multiple.
Okay, that makes sense.
There's
too.
not many that just buy one, so it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be fewer customers than permits sold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that you are copacetic about this. I will personally miss coming to buy them from you, but I understand.
But you still have to come to me to launch, so
Exactly.
you still
So,
stop
yeah,
in.
you're not rid of us yet, but I think that it does kind of seem like we're moving in
Yeah.
a positive direction. Well, I'm willing to entertain deciding on this tonight if people are ready, and if not, we'll just do it in February.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
I move to authorize the agreement with the online payment processor.
All right, thanks, Michael. How about a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, or can we vote?
We can
Thank you
vote.
for making that easy. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. Good research.
All right. Moving into the futures. Getting busy. Nice to have insurance coverage discussion. We have not received quotes back on that. We have filled out the application and given Lance and FIG Insurance, First Insurance Group, all the data that they need, but we're still waiting back on a quote. So as of now, there's not really any action
Anything to do.
to take. Luckily, we're not on the water doing anything, so risk of pollution is minimal. We should have quotes back anytime now. So I think we can table that discussion until February.
I saw though, they talked about, an example was a boat or a car going off the causeway, which I know has happened a
Yeah,
few times.
it has.
Was there any repercussions from that, from the cars being in there? Did IDEM come out and say they probably leaked oil or?
That was before my time, but I don't believe there
No.
was.
Yeah, we've
They
never,
just, yeah.
No, they
it was
just.
minimal, if
Right.
anything.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a
okay.
dead body in one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few years ago. Is there any chance they can put up guardrails there? I mean, that just
This
seems
is
like
nice.
that would maybe save some lives. Has there
They
ever
don't
been any
hardly have
discussion
enough
of
room
that?
for the
Not that
road.
I know.
That is true.
So-
That is true.
Yeah.
Did the board, Matt, just quickly, did you all get the email I forwarded you from Frank? Just outlining some of the good reasons to consider. It's just, we'll kind of put it off to February, but
We
I
have
thought
it
was.
as part of our policy.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah.
All right.
That it has a rider on the lake? Okay.
For the marina, if we have a fuel spill or whatever, then yes.
Okay.
We've
Yeah, I
got-
think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think we definitely should, but
Well, we'll vote on it in February then.
wait till we get some quotes for it.
Okay. All right, that brings us to the Strategic Planning Committee. Mary Jane, I'll leave it to you, if you want to put financial planning toward the bottom, so if Mr.
Well, I'll do
Baldessari.
a,
arrives.
I'll
we
do a
can-
piece of financial planning and then we'll come back to it. How's that?
That sounds great.
At our meeting last Friday, I talked a little bit about a meeting I had with a guy named Mark Boyata, and he's a consultant who does prospect research to identify potential donors, big donors, also like family foundation grant kinds of things, and he was recommended to us
This is
by
your opinion.
Angela White, who's the consultant that Debbie Ladyman had introduced to us. Can I just finish this?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
This little piece. He charges $100 an hour, and the other thing I will tell you is his wife is the director of women's philanthropy at Indiana University, and I think he could give us some real inroads to potentially dollars that we might get from IU. I don't know that, but at least
Connection.
she has the connection. And I think it would be well worth our while, and the committee agreed with me that we use Mark to identify some prospects for us. And I think we can put a cap on it, but if the guy did 40 hours worth of work for us, which I don't think this will be, it would only be $4,000. So what kinds of questions?
It'd probably be interesting to see a proposed scope of services, just exactly what he would be doing, and then, if we went down that route, I think having some type of not to exceed amount, just so without further consent of the board. But I mean, in the big scope, usually you need someone that is dedicated to trying to if we're trying to get real amounts of donations and estate planning, we're probably not going to be successful if we try to do it completely ourselves. So.
No, and in fact, that was my thought, is we could conceivably, if we had the time to put into it, get most of the information that he'll come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, we need a scope of service and to, rein him in a little bit. He would also like to have a list of all of the freeholders on the lake. And again, this is something we had talked about in the committee. He could actually get that list on his own.
It's a
Public record.
Because it's public record.
Yeah.
And so that would be a part of the scope of this, is that he would look at freeholders on the lake and the kinds of things that they donate to, this is all public record. When he started talking, it sounded a little bit like, wow, you're going to get up in people's personal business, but that personal business is public. So then what I'm going to ask Mark to do, we'll put something together and I'll bring that back to the board.
Sounds perfect.
Okay. Do you want to pause here?
absolutely. This is perfect time.
Yeah, it
Are you
is.
Doug?
Oh, good. Yes, I am.
Welcome. Really appreciate you coming. Would you like to formally introduce
This
your
is
guest?
Doug Baldessari from Umball and Associates. He is a financial advisor. He has experience in doing bonding with the state revolving program. He came recommended by Deborah Ladyman's company, also Patricia Zelmer from Ice Miller. So he was kind enough to say, yes, I can make it tonight. I can't make it tomorrow night. Tonight's a good night. And so without further ado, I welcome you to tell us what you can do for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, first, I don't know how many of you know much about our firm, so I brought some pamphlets that these are standard. I haven't a whole lot of time to prepare anything. But,
Thanks for coming.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks a lot.
But Miss Tripp, Bloomington. No.
We got several.
Oh, you
We got an extra. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give it to. Yeah, thank you.
I got two.
Malcolm's on the finance.
Yeah.
So I understand that you have a sediment project coming up, and that the plan is to go through the wastewater state revolving loan fund program, correct? Yeah, well, let me tell you a little bit about Umball. Umball has been in existence for 68 years now. We're an accounting firm, CPA firm, that focuses exclusively on municipal finance. All we do is we work at cities, towns, utilities, schools, counties, any sort of municipal agency, and helping them with finance projects, to do utility rates, to finance projects such as this for conservancy districts. I am Doug Baldessari, and I'm a partner at Umball. I've been doing this for 20 years. Do a lot of work with the SRF program, with water and sewer utilities. In fact, I just did a presentation with the director of the utility group from SRF the other day at the American Water Works Association conference. So we know a lot about the program, how it works, what they need, and all that to go through and get that loan. I will say there's not a whole lot of, it's my understanding you don't have utility rate customers here. They're City of Bloomington customers. So how we determine the interest rate and all that, there'll be some things to work through, since it'll be a property tax supported bond. But we've done property tax supported bonds through the SRF program too. So it's just a little tweak that we'll have to work through. But the interest rates on their bonds, I'm sure you're probably aware, is it's anywhere from 2% to 2.63% for the subsidized funds right now. That's usually based on the MHI of the area, the utility rates, and the utility rates and MHI related. So with regard to how this goes, I don't know how much more you want to hear about me or Umball, but as far as your project goes, it's my understanding you have an engineer, you have some designs going.
Yes.
And bidding is coming up.
That's a good question, and where are we with bidding? Because I didn't know the answer. Doug asked me about
As far
that.
as bidding out the whole project,
Yeah.
we're not there yet.
Okay.
We have started discussions with Shelley Love at State Revolving Fund,
Yep.
and she said with the work that we have now, we can kind of do the preliminary application and work with them as we finalize our design, since there wasn't any type of beginning and end mandated timelines. So I think we're looking at one more study that we're going to be talking about in a little bit, which I think will help tweak a little bit of our final design. But we're planning this year to have our final design this year.
Okay. Because how they work with their financing, they work on the state's fiscal year. So on July 1st is when they appropriate their funding. They do have a priority list. There's more need out there than they have money. They do a really good job of, even if they don't have subsidized funds, they'll do what they call a pooled bond issue, where they pool a bunch of communities together. They use their AAA rating to get the lowest interest rates they can, and then they just pass those along to whatever the entities are that are getting the financing. So first thing you have to do is get this application in that I saw in your board packet. So and you can do that. You're right. you have an estimated amount of what the project is, you have a scope of what the project is, you have, sounds like you have your bond counsel and other things figured out that you can fill the form out with. And all that does is get your project in the queue. If you want to get rated for this fiscal year, starting July 1st by the program, you'll need to submit a preliminary engineering report by June 15th. And I don't know if the engineers are aware of that, if that's a timeline that they could make happen. Without the PER, they won't rank the project because they don't feel that part of the rank is the readiness to proceed. So
we do have our preliminary study done.
Okay, but there is a certain format that they require because they're federal funds program, state program. So I assume your engineer has worked with SRF before and knows that. And they will have, once you submit the short application, then they'll have a what they call as a project planning meeting. They'll contact the district and they'll have their engineer and some other folks, and they'll have a meeting about the project and the timing and what's all involved. And then once the PER gets submitted, then it's really based on when the bids are going to happen. I mean, you do want to get all your professionals lined up at this point, but where we come into play is based on when you're going to get the bids, because SRF won't finance the project until you have the bids. So you'll work through the process with the PER and everything, but until they have the bids, they won't close on the financing. So, and that's when, based on that bidding, we'll work with the bond counsel to figure out a timeline based on the bond ordinances that you'll need to adopt. And any other resolutions that's necessary here. And then we'll, based on the timing of that, we'll submit a financial due diligence that will want another application, aside from the PER and aside from this application, that's strictly financing related. That if you've ever seen an official statement for a municipal bond, it has a lot of the information in there about the tax base and the large users and how you're going to pay the bonds back, and a whole bunch of financial information. It's about 30 pages long. Plus, they'll want a financial projection from your financial advisor that proves that you will be able to make payments on the bonds. And
that would be a component of the types of services that Umball would provide.
Yes. When I start talking about the financing, and even working with bond counsel, when we do the financial parameters based on, we work with the engineers to figure out what their construction costs are, but then what are all the soft costs to go along with that to get total project costs. And so we'll work through that process and fill out the financing application, work with the district on that. And then you move towards what they call a pre-closing, and then you close on the bond issue. It's normally 20 years. They do go 35, but with it being tax supported, I'm not sure that we'd work through that. We provide options for the board based on what the possibilities are and how your district is set up, and you as the board makes those decisions. We'll guide you through the process. And then you'll have, since it sounds like it's going to be a special benefits tax supported,
it is, yes.
Then we'll help. We have someone who actually used to work at the DLGF that helps prepare those budgets so that you can have that tax rate into effect when you need to make the payments on the bonds. And if there is a delay in when those payments are going to happen, then we'll capitalize the interest, build out the project budget, those things, so that financially you'll be able to make the payments and do your project.
Anybody have questions for him?
I would like just to know, it's got to be on everybody's mind, fees, your fee, range.
Range, okay. I would estimate for a project that's like this, how many meetings other than what would normally be required. Normally it'd be 3 or 4 meetings, and all this information with SRF and everything else, the range about $30,000. That would be built into the project costs and finance with the bond.
And we're still working through finding our bond counsel as well. Is that something your company can help find, or people that you prefer to work with, or even?
That's not necessarily. We have someone, Patricia Zelmer from Ice Miller, but we have not made that as a conclusion yet.
No,
But we
have several prospects.
yes, but that was a Malcolm had that name. So
We do work with Patty all the time.
yeah,
She's great.
so
Other questions about?
Malcolm has a question. If
I'm
it's,
sorry.
I have a question. So timeline, how from the time we have our engineering stuff to you, whatever you need, how long does the process take?
Well, it really depends on when the engineers can be ready to bid the project. We work, basically, the time is really driven by the engineering and when the project's ready to bid.
Right, but
ready
okay,
for
let's say we were
construction.
ready right now, then how long before we would be financed?
Well, if you're ready right now, then the driver would be the SRF program and when you could get financing. So they do have a little bit of money now, but I think they spent most of their money for last year. So if you were ready to go July 1st and you had bids in hand, we would send all our information in before you got the bids, or even slightly right after the bids. And that's usually about a month after that you would be able to close on the bonds. And, depending on the ordinances and how they're all ready. But usually that's, as long as we know far enough in advance and we don't get called the day you're trying to bid, we work all that in, it's run nice and smoothly.
And the July 1st deadline, is there, is it kind of first come, first serve, or is it, as long as you get in by July 1st, they'll figure it out and they schedule stuff? You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's the different programs they have, and actually there's a new law, or it's not law yet. A couple bills that were put in, one by each side of the House and Senate for the state, that they're going to start a new funding program too. They're going to help fund water and sewer infrastructure. That'll happen in 2020. But SRF has what they call the traditional subsidized interest rate program, which is the interest rates that I spoke of before, the 2 to 2.63, which is actually an interest rate that's below the AAA rate that the state could even get on the open market. That's why they call it their subsidized, because it's to help communities with their water and sewer projects. And then, but for that, there's more need than there is money. So that's why they have the priority list, and they look at various things. They look at what the project is and how dire need the project is. Like, is it really bad from a water quality standpoint? Well, that might rate higher than something else. And then readiness proceed is one of them. They have various. They don't tell us exactly how they rate those, but they have ways to do the priority. So for some reason you don't fall inside that, they do have other ways of financing it. So I would think that they would find a way. But you may end up paying a higher interest rate that's more like the AAA rate, which is still better than the Conservancy District could get on its own, because there's more than just how good you are financially from getting a AAA rating. It's just sheer size and economics and everything else, which Conservancy District just couldn't be.
Okay, you mentioned legislation to fund some of this stuff?
Most of it's going to, I think, be more low interest loans.
Oh.
But that won't be until 2020, if they even pass it. They seem to think. I was at the American Water Association conference. I think I said that before. Soliday was up there talking about it. They think it's going to pass, but we don't know the particulars yet.
So really, the next steps are once we select our financial advisor, but really once we submit our preliminary engineering report and they start reviewing that, that's really when the financial advisor's role would start to.
Yeah, but even in this form here, we'll help fill out the financial sections of the 2-3 page application or whatever it is, and help size the project with the engineers. We will have to do a preliminary report that goes within the PER that's submitted to SRF. So there's some advanced work there. And then once the PER is submitted, then a lot of times there's a period of, depending on how long the design takes and everything from the engineers, that we may not be real active until it gets closer to when it's time to shoot bonds.
Other questions, either side of the table?
On the engineering side, we can rapidly get engineering for phase 1 of our project in a short period of time.
Okay.
Phase 2, we don't have the financial piece to hire the engineering people. That's really is part of phase 1.
Okay.
Is to hire the engineers to do the phase 2 also. So can we do a 2-step bond process and get $1 million to start, do phase 1, help fund the beginning of engineering for phase 2/3? Okay.
Yeah, certainly. And that phase 2 doesn't even need to be ready to go yet. You know, you can have estimates kind of like you do now for phase 1, and you can even submit your preliminary application could include all 3, and then you're only going to close on this one right now.
As a
because that's
phase
what's going to
step.
be ready. As a phase
okay.
step.
That's a good.
That's a good question.
Really good
The
question.
whole project's in the queue.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good.
We
Very
can make
good.
it a July 1 date for getting engineering and bids and all those things with the preliminary data from our sediment transport study that you'll hear about next.
Okay.
But phase 2 and 3, we can't engineer because we don't have funds to pay
Right.
for the engineering.
Yeah, and they do, I mean, you'll have a project here too, but they do, you know, engineering only to loan, so they certainly would finance that
It's already built
engineering
into our phase 1.
component within the phase 1. And then you'll, as you get ready for phase 2 and phase 3, you would go through you'd have to update the PDR, and then you'd go through the closing process, just like you would go through, like we just talked about. So one thing I did
In
let
your
you know.
proposal negotiations, you need to address that we're going to have this in multiple steps.
And the one thing I didn't mention is they do have more, if you don't close by December 31st, then the money frees up for anybody. If you make the priority list, and then you do want to be in position to close before December 31st. Otherwise, anyone who's ready can come grab the money. They want to make sure they use up all their money every year. It's just how the program works. It is a good choice. SRF does they have some requirements and such. I don't know if are there easements or anything that need to be purchased for this project.
Not in phase 1.
Not in phase 1, because that can slow the process. But yeah, there is an environmental review that will need to be done, and but the SRF program has the lowest interest rates. I mean, you can do it with an open market bond, so you're paying 3.5%, 4% on a 20-year bond instead of 2% or 2.5%. So it doesn't sound like much, but when you figure the interest over 20 years, it's a lot.
I mean, I think it's appropriate to sort of similar to what we were talking about. The previous financial topic is looking at a scope of services and proposal to.
It's under the $50,000 threshold, but I mean, obviously.
I'd say that we don't have to necessarily do a request for proposals, but a proposal
Just
for
a
Yes.
scope of
Right,
what the
sure.
work
Right,
would be.
exactly.
So
Okay.
that we could understand it.
Right, yeah, we'll send you a full
Okay.
proposal.
Very good.
For you to look at.
And
Wow.
I've been working with UMBA on a different related topic.
I've worked with them in the
Yeah.
past myself, so, in the fire department. So, highly recommended by subject matter experts. And so anyway, Doug, I appreciate you making the long drive down here.
I
On short.
apologize, I didn't put a suit. Normally I'd have a suit on.
Look at us. Look at us, Motley
You
Crue.
can tell we get dressed up all the time.
We appreciate your time, and we're all learning too that obviously this is new for us. The biggest project we've ever undertaken at Lake Lemon, or attempted to undertake. I should say we're not quite there yet, but we're very happy to have the information.
Do you want him to send a scope of work to the SPC or
I
to
think you
Adam?
should send it to
Send it
Adam.
to Adam if you would. He'll give you, yeah. Well, can you at least get a Mother Bear's pizza before you get out of here?
Get a what?
Mother Bear's
like
pizza.
Mother Bear.
Yeah.
I'm actually
Just jog right.
yeah. Is it right out close to here?
Yeah, it's not
That's
far.
very
Not
close.
too far.
My daughter just accepted to come here, so she'll.
Oh, very good.
Oh,
Well,
that's great.
congratulations. That's neat.
Although my son's going to Purdue, so we got to get that.
Oh.
They're twins, obviously.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. We really appreciate your time.
Nice to meet
Thank
you.
And you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting unless you're terribly interested. We're actually. All right.
Thank you, Pam.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, the next item here is the sediment transport study. I'm going to let Adam speak to this. We discussed it in the committee, and we're going to go from there.
Yes. So the question that keeps coming up, and everybody's wondering is, how long is this project going to last? What are costs for maintenance going to be? How often are we going to have to maintain and dig? And so really to move forward comfortably, know that after we do this, we're going to be able to afford the maintenance, and we can plan for however we need to manipulate our operation to take that on. There's some data that we really need to have, and primarily what that comes down to is actually knowing how much sediment is coming into the lake. We've been operating on this, 10 to 40,000 cubic yards, which is a huge variance. So what the sediment proposal, the sediment transport study actually does is they will set up equipment in the creeks and actually monitor over a long period of time in different storm events, and ultimately what it produces is it's called a rule curve, but it's a prediction device that's saying if we get this much rainfall or we have this intensity of a storm event, a 5, 10, 100-year rain storm event, then we can expect this much sediment entering in during that time. And then once we actually have this, we can model or have the company model looking at rain events and weather data from the past couple of years. We can predict in the future. That really kind of narrow down looking at how much sediment is actually entering our lake during any given storm event or any over a period of time. And once we have that, then we can say, all right, we have these water diversions. We can model and we can estimate that 80% of this water is going to go into our containment areas. But once we know how much sediment is within that 80% of water, then we can start looking at, we expect this amount of sediment to be trapped in these areas and really help out with our maintenance needs. I really think this is a critical piece of information moving forward, both on a financial and an operations perspective. We do have a request or proposal here. There will be some differences between the different companies, just like when we bid out the original project, but the technology is out there, then the end result that we're looking for would be the same. So really what I'm wanting to do is send out this request or proposal on the transport studies to a few different companies. A few of them actually already bid on the original project, and we're looking at a few others, and I would like to actually get proposals back here during February, and then really hope to potentially select a company at the February meeting. It really seems like March and April are generally the rainy seasons here, and the intensity just increases, so getting this on the ground as soon as possible is going to be crucial to capture those rain events. Some of the initial estimates were right around the $30,000 range. That's from some of the proposals that we had when we were initially looking at doing the study. So we would have to see what they come in through the different companies, but I would estimate or assume that it would still be in that $30,000, potentially $40,000 range. There's going to be some add-ons. There'll be like a base monitoring, but if we want them to come back and there's a huge rain coming, well, they can come collect data to help. The more data that we have, the more accurate our curve is going to be for sediment loading. So really, based on this, I would just like a motion or permission to go ahead and send this out to different companies and solicit proposals. So we wouldn't be incurring any costs right now. I'd like to bring these proposals back at the February meeting with the plan to jump on this, assuming it's within our budgetary realm. And this ultimately has the ability to impact our final construction design as far as where our burns are going to be, where our water diversions are going to be, the size and scope of really everything. So I think this will have potentially a pretty significant impact on, well, the concept will remain the same, but exactly, how much area do we need behind this berm? How much area do we need in these capture zones to make it to where we can maintain it?
Sounds like that's what we need for the application anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think you need a vote. I think just permission, and I
definitely bless that. And I will say, Adam, as I looked at this, I think I'm the only one still on the board who was part of hiring you. And one of the things that set you apart was your desire to bring science-based decision-making to this lake. And I don't even know what half these terms mean. I don't know what a scour chain is or a Wallman pebble count methodology. I don't need to know, but the point is, I think we're trying to make decisions based on scientific knowledge, and there's a balance. You know, we have to always push-pull, but I appreciate this. What is a scour chain?
Scour chain actually anchor into the bed of a stream and has different weighted, essentially like balls on it. And what it'll allow you to do is look at certain flows, these different size and weighted chain elements will actually dislodge and move, so they can say, all right, with this amount of flow, we were able to move a 8, 10, 15 pound ball. So what that does is allows you to estimate how much erosion you could have along a sediment wall or along the bank of the stream. Well, actually, when they go out, they'll look at the compaction of the sediment in different areas along the stream bank. So this will really show you, all right, during this amount of flow, we could rip wrap from this area, or we can see a certain amount of force that would go towards erosion in the area.
Yeah, what intrigues me about this, and one of the things that I really like, is that in capital projects, and I don't want to make light of capital projects because obviously the dollar amount we're talking about for anything we do for the sedimentation projects is big dollars for our conservancy district. But it is inevitably always easier to get capital dollars than it is to understand the long-term operating dollars to maintain what you're doing. And I really like the idea that if this helps us better assess what our long-term costs are to sustain what we build, I think that's money well spent.
Okay. All right, bring us something to chew on in February, and we'll talk about it. Thank you.
And now Adam's going to talk.
Next is really, it's just a blank application.
I'm really just the facilitator.
Actually, the guest that we just had covered quite a bit of this. Some of the initial applications that we're looking at through state revolving fund will actually fall under a wastewater category because we're trying to reduce a non-point source pollution, which would be the sediment, which is a type of pollution. So it's a waste in the water, so it's just a wastewater application. And when I talked to them, they said that this is absolutely a project that they would fund or potentially fund underneath the wastewater applications section. She said for our initial application, we do not even actually have to have our financial advisor and bond counsel to get our initial meeting, so we can actually apply with what we have now in our preliminary report and then find out what we need to do from there moving forward. I would like to talk to Shrewsbury about the preliminary engineering report, because that has to be included with this, and make sure that we have that in the format that he was talking about that is mandated by the state revolving fund, and see what we need to do there. So we can, I don't think we're in a super time crunch right now where we have to submit those this week. So I'd like to, this is really just for reference, what we're applying for, the program that we're going under, and I will speak with Shrewsbury and the state revolving fund to make sure we submit our initial preliminary report in the format and have everything that they need.
Okay. It's lengthy, 5 pages. It's more than I thought.
So even though it asks who the engineer and the bond counsel and financial advisor are, we don't need to put those on there?
Not for our initial meeting. Okay. So the initial meeting is just going to be going over the project, what we're looking to do, but before they were to give the final approval and the final okay, we would have to have that on record as who our counsel would be.
Are you finished? I have a question.
No.
So do we, will we have more names coming in February for a bond counsel and for a financial advisor?
Well, we have a list as it is, right?
Malcolm sent me a list. I've wadayed that list. I've talked to Malcolm about the list. I've talked to Deborah Ladyman about the list. We were the 3 that were assigned last month to come up with names to bring to the board. And so I brought Doug Baldessari as a financial advisor and Patty Zelmer as bond counsel. That's the consensus of who the experts have said that these are the people. If you're doing a project that's never been done before in Indiana, and you want the right people, these are the ones. And so I guess I had either like permission to have them send us a scope of work to add them, and and
Well,
then
we already did that with
Right.
Doug, but I
Right.
guess we would need it from then.
From
the
Patricia
bond
Zomer,
council,
Patty Zomer,
the
so-
bond council.
I think that's a great idea.
okay. I just wanted to know what the next step would be, that we would move on with that.
That-
so.
My only question would be, I don't think it's an issue with UMBA, but don't we have, if we go over $50,000 in expense, don't we have to do?
If we go over 50, we really just have to get quotes from multiple companies. If we hit $100,000, then we have to go through the official
So,
bidding process.
depending on what a bond council would cost us.
30,000.
Is that true for
30,000.
services though?
Okay.
Because I know.
I think that was going to be 100.
Services.
That's what Mike Shoemaker said, but that's, and actually I had it backwards. Financial advisor was 80 or 50 to 80. Bond counsel was 30. But he just came in and said 30,000.
I'm not sure that for a service that you have to do, state law gives a lot more latitude, presuming that the Conservancy District falls under the same purchasing guidelines that we have, not guidelines, but laws. But services don't fall under, usually you're allowed to use whatever means or methods that the purchasing agent, which would be us, deems most appropriate for the service. When you go into supplies, and definitely when you go into capital projects, it's a much more defined what you have to do. But that $50,000 threshold, my recollection is, doesn't apply to a service.
Okay, that's good to know.
Unless we wanted to.
Right.
Then I think we should go ahead and get scope of service from both.
All right. Thank you.
And even if we
Are you
find that
gonna
it
let
does, it
her
does
know
give us
that?
the memo.
I will. I don't know, she's still contagious, so she's still not back to work.
When she feels better.
Yes, I will email or call her and let her know to send Adam. Are you a manager at Lake Lemon?
Yes.
Because sometimes I get emails from you that just says office at Lake Lemon.
Yeah, it's primarily Alex. But,
Okay.
manager
So that
of
would be
All right,
Alex.
very good, thank you.
All right, Mike, thanks for running these folks down. That was
You're welcome.
Yeah,
I
that's
had
good.
help. I had
all
some
of you.
help.
Okay, so there were a couple of other things we talked about. This is still the SBC.
We're still in the SBC meeting, yes.
We talked about a couple of other things that I think are of interest to the board. Kathy McClure and Ann Robleski are starting to work on a summertime fundraiser under the Lemonade Days umbrella to take place at Riddle Point, and we have tentatively set June 29th or 30th kind of as a placeholder for that event. This would be not like the boat tour, the home tour by boat, I'll get this right eventually, is going to be September 14th. This event in June would be a more family-oriented event and more geared to kids and people with kids. So we couldn't come up with that date, but at next month's meeting we will come up with a date. Also, I just want to mention that Tim Roth did a really nice job on the bathhouses. I toured with Adam and Alex in December, and once they're painted, they're going to look an order of magnitude better than they did.
Yeah, you know.
I don't want to get everybody really excited.
I was excited.
But they really look a lot better.
I got a text. It was nice.
You didn't have the best item to start with.
No. But it's better than lipstick on a pig. I mean, it's a little better than that. The other thing that we talked about was Les showed us a picture and talked a little bit about a prefab shelter house with bathrooms that might merit further consideration from us at some point. Do you have your photo? I failed to bring mine.
Yep.
It's kind of a cool thing, and they're decidedly less costly. So as we start to think about the longer term things we would do at the park, this could be part of that scenario. So we're getting our feet on the ground with 2019, and we'll be setting up what our primary priorities are going to be which I think we already all know, as we move forward. And that was our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us already to public comment. Anybody? You know, it's so funny. It's so funny that 5 years ago, at this moment in time, it was a challenge. So I just, as we start the new year, I'm personally grateful for the demeanor of everybody, the board, the crowd, and we worked hard to kind of put this in this direction. So we're all a part of it. So yes.
I just wanted to also report regarding the strategic planning committee through the Parks and Recreation group that soon we'll be working on creating scope of work and a bid package to do the ADA accessibility portion that was budgeted for this fiscal year to address some parking area space by the shelter house and access ramps and sidewalks between the shelter house and the bathhouse.
And you're going to talk more about that at the February meeting?
Correct. So okay. That's just, didn't want to miss that's another activity that's going to happen on the positive end. We just got to wait till the season till we can do asphalt. So.
Okay.
Frank, that reminds me of a question I had maybe 2 meetings back. Have you heard of these things that you see at beaches called, I believe they're called Moby mats, where they'll put this, it looks like a gym mat from the restroom down to the water. Are these things that would be...
The technology is newer developed.
Okay.
There's questions on usage and life cycle. There's better products today than there were 3 years ago when the technology first came out that has better UV resistance.
We don't have any beaches. So.
Oh, I guess that's right.
Well, you have your water park, so I just don't know if you've gotten into any of that yet, but or not.
Everything we have.
There are some other means and mechanisms that we could, as far as the next phase, not budgeted in this year, that we could work towards making that spur that addresses the issue of accessibility from the sidewalk that connects our 2 structures, takes us through the picnic area to make a picnic area, takes us through the beach, and actually gets us into the water. So it may be a combination when we finally get to that we do something with a hard surface and then something else that's removable, but then that becomes a burden to staff to place it down in the spring and pull it up in the fall.
These are not able to be left during winter weather, I'm assuming?
The original products, at least if you know something I don't, but what I seen, what was the original products, I haven't seen the newest technology, although I know it's there. The older projects were not designed to really be a 24/7, 365 with our kind of winter.
Okay. Or they're using them in Florida where they don't have to move them.
Yes, exactly.
That's where I saw
That's
them.
where I have a feeling that I know which one you saw.
Probably you do. Yeah, it was just, they're not necessarily attractive, but I mean, in terms of a concrete, a cost, I wondered if it was a cost-effective possibility.
It is a safety factor, because then you got people that are stubbing their toe and falling on it, so they are better than a hard surface concrete or asphalt, but they have a different cost base and a life cycle and a maintenance operation. So they're all things we'll look at when we get to that phase, but this year's phase its focus is to start the piece that gives us accessibility into the buildings, parking, and the connection between the 2 buildings.
It's funny how the older you get, the more you start to notice these kinds of things. You just know you might need them someday. Anyway, okay. Any other thoughts?
Thank you.
Will you be at the February meeting? I know it's early to ask, but
it's February 28th.
Yeah. Will you be at the annual meeting? I've just had one more thing. Did you want to bring up your kit?
No, not yet.
Okay.
That'll be
all right.
Every month I have a thing to poke you with. That'll be next month.
Okay.
But yes, I'll be there.
All right.
Okay. So that comment is concluded. The next meeting is our annual meeting, the boat pass drawing, and that's Thursday, February the 28th at 6, right back here. So that's that, and we will reinstall Mr. Blackwell at that time.
Oh, okay. I got to take another oath.
Providing he doesn't change, you've got to take another oath. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:05.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Drive safely. Thank you for coming. See you in a month.